when multiplying square roots, we want to follow a certain process in order to do this. This process is sometimes called the FOIL method, FOIL. And so first, we do these in order. The first terms, we do the outer terms, the inner terms, and the last terms. So I'm going to show that by these arrows here of how we're going to follow that. So here's the first one. We have, these would be considered the first terms. So we're going to do square root of 6 times square root of 6. So I'll just write that out. Square root of 6 times square root of 6. And we're going to have the first times the last right here. So this is the outer. When we're talking about FOIL, it's the outer terms. So we're going to do a plus square root of 6 times square root of 8, like that. Next, we're going to do the inner terms. So first, outer, inner. So the inner terms would be, now there's a minus here. We'll do minus square root of 8 times the square root of 6. So we have both of those there. And then finally, we have the last terms. That's what the L stands for, and FOIL is last. We have minus square root of 8 times the square root of 8 here. Now we can multiply this. That's square root of 36. Now, one thing we'll notice about the middle terms is these are actually both going to cancel out because we have the same thing. We have a positive root 6 root 8, and we have a negative root 6 and root 8 here. So both of these are actually going to add up to 0. So we don't have to multiply that and make it square root of 48 and simplify it. Don't have to do all that because we know right away that these are going to cancel out. So you have square root of 36, and you have minus square root of 64 from these two. Square root of 36 is 6. Square root of 64 is 8. So we just have 6 minus 8, and that's going to equal negative 2. So for this problem, we actually got an integer answer as a result, so negative 2. Now, what happens if you've got a square? So let's take a look at this kind of problem next. We have a square that's up here. Now, one thing you do not want to do is you don't want to distribute the square and make it 7 squared plus square root of 6 squared. That's wrong to do something like that. Instead, what you want to do is we're going to write it out like this. We're going to do 7 plus square root of 6. We're going to do 7 minus, or 7 plus square root of 6. So both of these, there's two of them together. So square means we multiply two of them together like that. So we have one here, we have an identical one here. That's what square means. If you've got 7 squared, for instance, you would do 7 times 7. Well, same thing here. If you have 7, if you have 2 up here on top, then whatever is inside the parentheses, you're just going to multiply that by itself. So that's how you want to change the square and write it out like this. So now we're going to do the first. So we have 7 times 7 is 49. And then we have 7 times square root of 6 is just going to be 7 square root of 6. We have the inner terms. That's going to be another 7 square root of 6. And then we have the last terms, square root of 6 times square root of 6. Okay, so that'll be a plus there. Now we're going to add the middle terms. 7 and 7 is going to give you a 14. So we have 14 square root of 6. Those are like terms in this case. Square root of 6 and square root of 6 is going to be square root of 36, which then is going to turn into a 6. So now we can just add 49 and 6 and get 55. And so this would be the final answer here. It would be 15 plus 14 square root of 6. There's nothing more we can do here because these are not like terms. Okay, so we'll leave our answer like that. Now we'll do one more. We have a you try it question here, and we're going to do the same FOIL method for that. Now, if we take 19 and 19 and multiply together, that's going to be a pretty big number. So what I'm going to do instead, which you can do on these problems, instead of writing it out, is root 19, kind of like I did the root 6 and root 6 here. You could use the square notation because you're multiplying it by itself. So you get root 19, that's quantity squared you'd have there for that. Now this one I'm going to do plus root 19 times root 13. I'm going to leave it just as a product like this for now, and you'll see why in a second. It's because we have the same thing we're multiplying inside with a negative. So this would be another case where the two middle terms are going to cancel out because you have two of the same numbers, same square roots being multiplied, and you have a minus with the same two here. So that's actually going to cancel out. And this last one, we have minus square root of 13. Again, I'll use the square notation on that. All right, so square root of 19 squared. The square gets rid of the radical, so you just end up with 19 there. We already mentioned that these two middle terms, they're going to go away. And then 13, if you square that, you get rid of the radicals, so you have 19 minus 13, which is equal to positive 6. And so that would be your answer. So this is another case where you get a whole number answer. So you're not always going to get a whole number or an integer as your answer. Sometimes you might end up with something like the second example where you might have a number and a radical. It just depends on the problem itself. But for this particular one, this you try question, you do get an integer.